righty. Speaking of motherships, so the WWE took the big airship, the big Zeppelin. They flew across the oceans and into the Saudi Arabia land, and they did another episode of Crown Jewel. And Brian, my first question is, does every arena, or do all the arenas in Saudi Arabia look like airplane hangars? Is it? I mean, I know it's not a budget concern. They've got more money than has ever been printed over there, but they just look like the big. You see the big ceiling. It's like a big airplane hangar. What is it? Just a difference in architecture and the culture, or what's going on over there? Are you an expert in this field?
I'm not an expert in the arena situation in Saudi Arabia, no. And when you say they have all the money, you mean the ruling family, I assume? Because I don't think it's the people, it's the family that rules the country.
Well, yes, but they can
has
build
all the oil money.
They can build all the shit. They got big buildings over there.
They do.
They can build all the shit. People just can't afford to live in them. Well, that's amazing. So, and the announcers, it was this, because I say this every time we watch one of these shows, but I feel like they're changing these fucking guys' names. But every time that I say that wasn't Fubar Makafakaloob and Slapco Fudd, then somebody will write, say, no, it's the same announcers we always had. But this did not look like Fubar and Slapco.
I believe it was Fubar and Slapco once again.
Are they just calling them different names every time?
Well, their names are not Fubar and Slapco, for the record. You gave them those names. Those are not their actual names.
Well, but they seem like they have different names every time we see them. So regardless of whether they're the names that I gave them or the names that their parents gave them, they got different fucking names. What are they, trying to stay ahead of the law?
Thanks for being here tonight. Now let's show you our Saudi Arabia announce team, who you will only see on these shows and nowhere else ever.
Ever. Well, now, to be honest, there's not a lot of call to have Raw from fucking Tyler, Texas, translated into Arabic, is there?
Well, there probably is, but probably not live. I guess you could do that in the studio the way they used to do it with you and Vince hanging out and having fun on Monday nights.
That's a lie. Vince never did learn Arabic. Anyway, the Crown Jewel event opened. And should we make this mention generally before we begin the blow-by-blow description that I said to you earlier today, this was probably the best 2-hour pro wrestling program that I've seen in I don't know how long. Problem was it took 4 hours. Do you think that was because there was some of the matches were very good. Nothing was, except one thing, was really stinkifying. But it took so long to get to anything. And is that, did they feel like, I get, maybe they're paying them by the hour. Maybe it was $12.5 million an hour. So they had to help me. What's going on here, Brian, with the pace, the glacial pace?
This has been the pacing in their big events for a while, where they go for several hours, but you only get a few matches, and there's long commercial breaks, either in-house commercial breaks or actual commercials. In this case, for tourism, for Saudi Arabia, because that's where I want to go on my next vacation, to a nice, relaxing vacation in Saudi Arabia, where they just throw people off roofs, that's all.
Fuck Pigeon Forge. I'm going over to... Well, anyway, they couldn't put the bloodline on last because the world champion versus world champion had to go on last. So they bookended things with the other big feature match, the bloodline versus the bloodline, with Solo and Jacob and Tama versus Roman and the Usos. And do you think poor Loa has figured it out by now that they just have no confidence in him whatsoever?
He's just got to be happy to be there. That's what I think.
If it makes you happy.
Well, that doesn't.
then go ahead and keep getting paid. So Roman and Jimmy got an entrance, and then Jay got his own entrance with the waving and the yeeting. And you got to say, what the crowd that was there, do you remember the other Saudi Arabia crowds being this fucking over the top?
Well, they didn't
When they started, it was a little reserved, right? And then they've kind of got with it. But boy, these people wanted to see everything.
Well, they were chanting and stuff. I remember them going crazy for different people in the past. Sami Zayn got a big reaction. But again, Jey Uso came through the crowd.
Well, yes, but I mean, they were hot for almost everything that was in any way remotely entertaining on this program. They knew all the words. How many people in Saudi Arabia speak English? Or do you think that they're doing the Saudi Arabian equivalent of the fucking Filipino guy that Journey got to take Steve Perry's place, where he could make the vocal sounds, but he couldn't speak English, so he was just phonetically doing the fucking songs?
I think a lot of people know English. I think it's one of the languages that a lot of people throughout the world are taught. And in a lot of cases throughout the world, those, the kids who grow up in different countries are taught multiple languages. As opposed to us, who learn English and then, drop Spanish in 10th grade.
But nevertheless, they're singing. They love to sing over there because they only get a couple of these a year. So it's still kind of fresh in their minds. So they love this. But the crowd was great. And then they rang the bell, as the old saying goes. No, they rang the bell 20 minutes into the program for the first match. And I mean, you can tell me what you thought of the match in a minute. And to be honest, there wasn't much match there, but the crowd was so easy. I jotted down, I said, they're working a spot show match, which in the territory days, if you'd go to a spot show that didn't get a show very often and they were popping on headlocks and arm drags, that's great. You shine the baby faces, let them do stuff that makes them look good, and body slams and drop kicks and hip tosses and stuff. And then you get some heat and nobody takes too many risks, but people are loving it anyway. And then you do your finish or whatever, because I try to tell the Ring of Honor guys this at some point, a number of points. How much louder can they scream? Right? So that's where you gauge your performance based on the crowd. And if you're in Milwaukee and there's 500 people, don't risk life, limb, and property, but just do shit that they'll be happy with. They're already screaming. How much louder can they scream? Now, having said that, while as a former booker, promoter, and performer, I understand that principle, then a big-ass fucking crowd, and the company got paid $50 million. So they kind of worked through this kind of flat-footed, but until the finish, there wasn't really anything going on that you were hanging on the edge of your seat about, was there?
I said it when we talked about SmackDown. I like the segments with them where they're talking to each other and things are progressing. And the finishes of the matches usually have some kind of story. The matches themselves go on forever. They're not always paced right, at least for me. And there's, once you've brought up all the sloppiness with the Usos, that's all I see now.
You can't look away from it now, can you?
Well, it's your fault. You brought it up, and now I can't unsee it.
Well, that's because it slapped me in the face when I first saw it, just like their punches that are open-handed slaps to the face. I can't not see it because I operated a training program.
But yeah, the match I thought was a little lacking. But it's not really about the matches when it comes to the bloodline.
And that's basically, they got basic, long heat on Jay, and then finally, they had kept Roman out for the whole match. It was either Jay or Jimmy. And then finally, Jay tagged Roman and got a big pop. I mean, it's working. And then it was Roman against Solo. And they did a big 1-2 exchange, and then Roman made his comeback, but the other 4 guys had all just disappeared. It's like somebody out in the crowd has a tranquilizer dart at some point, and the guy just, but Roman hit Superman punch and went for the spear, but Solo hit the spike and covered him. And then poor old Jimmy, he'd waited all that time for his spot, and he was late for the save, and the referee had to hold up the count.
At least the camera wasn't completely on it, so they were able to almost make you think, oh, maybe he got him and I just couldn't see it.
But I'll tell you, if this had been Brooklyn, the crowd would have booed the shit out of it. But these people are just like, ooh, should that have happened?
If they boo, they better watch out. They better watch their back on the way home.
Well, yeah, because you can't boo an official government project. But he'd been gone for 5 minutes, and he came in late on the fuck. Anyway, so then the other 4 guys jumped in at 100 miles per hour. They went back and forth. And finally, Roman grabbed Tama and threw him onto the referee. But then Jacob leveled Roman and hit that sweet, sweet moonsault, and then it did a dive on both Usos out on the floor, and Solo spiked Roman twice and covered him in 1, 2, 3. And I'm like, ooh. And I agree with Solo beating Roman. If either of the Usos had lost, it wouldn't have the impact, and if anybody but Solo got the pin, it wouldn't be what they're trying to do. But I thought this was somewhat, again, nobody really gets a fucking out anymore. And then the heels got some more heat, and they cleared off the desk, and they were going to powerbomb Roman through the desk, but Jay stopped them. But then they got on Jay, and they put him in the corner with the chair around his neck, and they're going to do the ass in the face at the chair and a thing, but Sammy's music plays. And Sammy comes to the ring, and Sammy and Solo are standing there talking to each other. But now, meanwhile, Jay is in the corner, sitting motionless, upright with a chair around his neck. Brian, I've recovered from goddamn knee surgery. When I was coming out of the anesthetic, I was able to fucking take a chair off my head. But anyway, sitting right there, and then Sammy looks at Jay, but then he goes to hug Solo. And as he goes to give him the hug, he gives him the suplex. And then the heels get on Sammy. But now all the baby faces get up, including Jay taking the chair off his head. And they dump the heels, and Solo is trapped in the middle with all 4 of the baby faces, Jimmy and Jay and Roman and Sammy. And at the same time, Roman and Sammy charge for Solo, and Solo moves, and Sammy just knocks the shit out of Roman with the big kick. And then Jimmy's pissed, and Jay's trying to get in between them, and the heels are and they leave. So it again a bump in the road to true domestic bliss here. But like you say, the match it was the finish and a reason to do the angle, and they'll have a package of the angle on Raw and move from there.
You know, it's interesting to think that here 2 years after the fact, I think that's how long it's been, they're going to pull Sami Zayn. They're going to pull Sami Zayn back into this. But I guess if you're going to really a bloodline versus bloodline, he is one of the... Now that Roman's... All of a sudden we're forgetting what a prick he was to everyone.
Yeah.
You know, now Sammy has to try to prove himself to Roman because he accidentally just hit him, and we'll see where it goes. Interesting.
And Sammy was one of the most popular members of the bloodline when they were heels.
Maybe he'll get his win back over Roman. Remember everyone flipped him? Everyone. Remember there were certain fans, certain smart fans flipping out when he didn't beat Roman Reigns in Montreal for the title?
Yes. Everybody in Quebec and San Jose were offended.
That's right.
But anyway, so that was the opening contest. And where do you go from there? Well, you go straight to the Women's Tag Team Championship 4-team 4-way match, with Damage Control against Lash LaRue and Jakarta Jackson, against Piper and Chelsea, against Bianca and Jade. Brian, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say you might have glossed over this contest.
I saw the Doomsday device.
You could see the end of the world from this match. I don't know about Doomsday. But why do they're making custom outfits for the girls now, the full body suits, instead of, remember when they first started, the first show or two, they were either wearing like a scuba outfit or sweatpants and a sweatshirt. But now they're actually making custom outfits for the girls. Can anybody just come out and say, what the fuck is wrong with those people over there?
In WWE, no, they're not allowed to say that.
No, I mean, just anybody come out and say, hey, Saudi Arabia, what the fuck? Here's goddamn all these guys out here with more nipples than at a dairy farm. You can see those. They're in their normal attire, but the women have to wear beekeeper outfits. What the fuck is wrong with those people over there? I'm not going anywhere that it is illegal for me to wear my clothing. Are you?
Oh, no, there's plenty of reasons I won't be going to Saudi Arabia anytime ever, no.
Well, I don't mean this specific place. If they have a law that says that you are not allowed to wear what you've got in your closet at home, is that a place you want to fucking go?
No.
Well, there you go, see?
Especially if it's Saudi Arabia, that's my point.
Well, that's mine too, so high five. All righty, the next match was the long-awaited contest between formerly Mr. Nice Guy and now Human Wrecking Machine Bronson Reed against our old friend Seth Franklin Rollins. And we have you especially, you've become a fan of the chaos and the antisocial behavior and destruction that the human Godzilla film that Bronson Reed has been wreaking across the WWE universe, right?
He's like an aggressive Jerry Blackwell with bad tattoos. I like it.
He needs Jerry Blackwell's afro. The curly fucking whole thing. Well, it encompassed both sides of Black, because he had the beard, so both sides of his head, or top and bottom, or whatever. It was just like a giant array of hair around his face, wasn't it?
I liked it too when he wore the bumblebee outfit. It's just yellow and black. He looked like a giant bumblebee.
Yes, and because that's what the boys fucking call. You know where that came from, right? That was an inside rib.
It was didn't he wear a mask and actually wrestle as the bumblebee once?
Well, yes, because in Knoxville, Southeastern, he lost a loser leave town match and came back as the Canadian Bumblebee in a fucking black and yellow outfit. But the boys said in his outfit, he looked like a bumblebee. He was so short and so round, but he could fly. So he looked like a bumblebee.
Like Bronson Reed, he could fly.
Like Bronson Reed. Anyway, because this was a grudge match and blood was bad and tempers were flaring, they did a jump start in the aisleway. But here, I started keeping track because this was the third match right on the show. It started an hour and 20 minutes into this pay-per-view, the third match. And that was not all match time. Not by any stretch of the imagination. So anyway, they jump start in the aisle, they fight to the stage, they fight down the ramp. When they get to the ring, Seth rolls in the ring so he can dive back out. And I'm like, what the fuck? This is starting like an AEW match. What the fuck? And then Bronson Reed lawn darted Seth over the barricade into the timekeeper's pit, into a chair, and then ran him into the stairs, and then rolled him in the ring, and the referee rang the bell to start the match. Were we just talking about that last week in AEW? That they've come up with this thing that they're just all now doing like it's part of the rules, that the guys can come out and drop like Agent Orange and nuclear missiles on each other before the bell rings, but then once that they both get in the ring as long as they still have 50% of their appendages attached to their body. The referee rings the bell and starts the match like, okay, we're starting now. When did this start happening?
I don't know, but I was at the WCW show at the Paramount in 1993, an infamous disaster of a show where Ric Flair couldn't make it. So it was a disaster of a show. But Ron Simmons...
Was he trying, by the way?
Apparently he couldn't make it because of the weather. He couldn't fly in. But Ron Simmons and Chris Benoit, for like 90 seconds, 2 minutes, had a wild match around the ringside, and then the New York State Athletic Commission stopped it. Can't go on anymore. It's too wild.
Now instead they start the match, and then they get in the ring. But they started hot here in the ring. Bronson Reed missed a splash off, or did a splash off the top, but missed the second one. And then Seth hit his curb stomp and got a 2 count. So I was like, what the fuck? Where do they go from here? Because they've been fighting all outside the ring and around the ring, and now they get in and trade their finishes, and they've just started. And so then they did shit back and forth, and then Reed started getting some heat. And he got heat on Seth, and then Seth kind of made a comeback, but it slowed way down because it had to. They started at 100 miles an hour. And then they went back and forth where Bronson Reed would take back over and power bomb or Death Valley Driver, get a 2 count, or superplex off the top rope and get a 2 count. But I guess the problem I had was that they started. It's hard to start at 100 miles an hour with a guy that weighs 350 pounds and expect the rest of it not to be 25 miles an hour. But then finally, Reed picked up the stairs and he went to hit Seth with them, but Seth tried to clip Bronson Reed's leg, but he came from the front and kind of slapped his thigh. And then Reed kind of went down to his knees and fell face first into the stairs that he was holding. And it didn't look good because it's hard to do. And also, I think he either tatered himself with that, or when Seth gave him the stomp on the stairs, busted his eye open. And then he rolled him in the ring and gave him a curb stomp. And then he went to the top and gave him another curb stomp. 1, 2, 3. So again, it slowed down, and then the whole finish with the face into the stairs. It didn't translate because he didn't want to fucking hurt Bronson Reed by clipping his leg out from under him, really, but he was coming from the front, and that's harder to do, and Reed had that weight over his head. So the point is it was kind of bleh. And then 3 curb stomps, and the fans loved it. The fans loved everything here. But I don't know whether this was just the greatest thing ever or not. Am I mellowing in my old age?
I mean, it was a lot for their big match. It was a grudge match. I guess it'll continue because they had a little bit of a face-off at the end. Good visual of Bronson Reed having the blood. I think it was from the stomp on the stairs. At least that's what I thought watching it. I don't know. I mean, I guess the surprising thing is Rollins going over cleanly. What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, in modern day wrestling and modern day WWE, pretty much either the heel wins or the babyface wins. Almost everything is clean in some fashion or another. Maybe somebody distracts somebody and makes them look like an idiot, and then the other guy just hits his finish. But a lot of this thing, I'll just hit him with my finish 3 or 4 times in a row, and then the fans will cheer when I get the pin. It wasn't as bad as what would follow. Is that a fair assumption?
I don't recall what followed.
The women's title match between the Refrigerator and Liv Morgan.
Oh, you didn't like this?
Oh, come on. Look, I know they figure we got to gimmick this thing up. Little smoke and mirrors. It's going to be a clash of styles. It's going to be a clash of sizes. It's going to be a 12-year-old scuba diver fighting a pissed off parade float. is what it's going to look like. I'm with them that they had to try to, disguise a little bit of this, but this was an opus to how many fucking things can we put into one match to disguise the fact that the match straight up would be the shits. And it was so much. You like this?
Oh no, I thought.
Oh no.
It wasn't really my.
That's not nice.
I'm not a big Nia Jax fan, and you're an asshole.
I'm just telling you.
You know that what Poppy's saying, and then you said it. I'm not a big fan of the Nia Jax matches, no. And Liv Morgan, the nice thing was she seemed very touched for a heel. She seemed very overjoyed as a childhood wrestling fan that she was the first Saudi Arabian Crown Jewel Championship winner. And,
I wouldn't have enjoyed this if I'd have been the one to touch her.
You haven't even discussed yet the idea that after weeks of building it up, Cody, Gunther, and then this match, no one wins the actual belt.
Oh, well, yes. Well, it's just come up.
Okay,
here.
I guess it'll come up. Let's. I'll go back to you.
David, back to you.
Back to you, Jim.
Tom. Well, thank you, Dave. The fucking belts now, we are come to be told, the belts will stay in Saudi Arabia and be on display there, but the winner gets a nice ring he can wear around all year long, and then next year they're going to have another match for another belt that they don't get to fucking keep and take home. I wonder do you think Saudi Arabia made those things and they're fucking real? And they're really worth like a couple of $100,000 or whatever it might be, and they don't.
And they pay for real security to carry them to all these tapings. We've been seeing like security guards carry it.
Yes, I wondered if that's not a gimmick.
when they showed the close up on this event, I was like, "Are those real jewels?" They really fooled me, so I don't know.
Well, I mean, because again, well, I guess it's racist to say Indian givers and they're Arabs anyway. Don't have anything to do with India.
Yeah, that whole sentence was wrong.
Well, and that's why I didn't say it. But I'll tell you one thing, the people that win the belts ain't going to get to take the belts home. And that would piss off a lot of fucking people back in the old days.
So the person who wins next year, do they get a new belt that they get to hold for one night? Or
no, I think they've just made these belts and now they're on display in Saudi Arabia if you want to swing by and look at them. But the champions get a ring every year.
So every year that you get to celebrate with the original belt, you hold it up in the air, you get your photos, and then you give it back.
Yeah.
And
well, you get to hold it up in the air if Triple H is helping you because it's so fucking big. Liv couldn't pick it up by herself.
Like, are they going to do this every year where the weeks leading up to Crown Jewel, there's just, these security guards carrying a large case of a championship, which they held longer than the champion?
You are correct, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, congratulations, Liv Morgan.
It's good business for the guys in the suits that have the white gloves that carry the things around. But so the whole thing, and by the way, match number 4, they're picking up time. It started only an hour and 45 minutes into the show. But they had somewhat of what could be described as an attempt at a match, and then Liv got a sunset flip power bomb type of thing off the turnbuckle, and both of them were down. And here came Tiffy with her briefcase, and she was going to cash in. But as she's trying to give it to the referee, she turns around and realizes, oh, the refrigerator is up, and confronts her. And old Nia Jax backed Tiffy up all the way around the ring, and as they got to the complete other side, Nia was looking over her shoulder like, am I standing in the right place I'm supposed to be in? So she was obviously positioning herself. And then Liv runs and jumps out and kicks her and then goes for a dive, but the fridge nails her and tells Tiffy to get the fuck out of there. And Tiffy starts leaving, and the fridge gives Liv a stiff Samoan drop. And I mean a stiff one, and Liv rolled her up in a crucifix out of the stiff Samoan drop and got a 2 count. if it was real, Liv would have still been collecting her spleen. But now they were both selling, and Jax was selling the roll-up bigger than Liv was selling the Samoan drop, and Tiffy comes back down with the briefcase. And the refrigerator slams Liv, but Tiffy tries to cash in now. But there comes Rochelle, a.k.a. Rachel Rodriguez, or Raquel Rodriguez.
Raquel Rodriguez. You keep saying Rachel.
Or Raquel Welch. Well, she grabbed the case, and she and Tiffy had a tug of war with it. And then apparently, from what I can deduce and determine as a former industry professional with decades of experience, it seems to me that if I would have been calling the finish as I saw it happening, that Jax was supposed to reach over the top rope to grab a hold of Rodriguez to try to get her off of Tiffy, and then Rodriguez was going to snap Jax's head over the rope, right? And Jax would stagger back, and then Liv would come off the turnbuckle with her double knee move thingy. That's what I deduced that it was supposed to be, but instead, the fridge leaned under the top rope and reached over the second rope to grab Raquel. So when Raquel tried to snap her head over the rope, it wasn't over the rope. And there was, and so Jax just stood up and staggered back anyway. Did you see that spot?
Oh, of course I saw that spot.
Do you think I'm on the right track as to what I'm deducing that it should have been?
What are you deducing?
That it should have been over the top rope.
I think so.
She leaned under the top rope. At 2 count. And I'm like, Jesus, how much more of this? So then Rachel backed Tiffany up. But Liv jumped out on the floor, but Jax came and belly bumped Liv and Rachel into Tiffy, and then got back in the ring, and the fridge did a leg drop and went for the bonsai, but Dominic appeared and slid the briefcase in and drew the referee, and Rachel kicked the fridge off the ropes, and Liv hit her finish, the Oblivion, where she jumps into the ropes and then drags the girl down face first, but old Nia Jax did a forward roll. Just like a forward roll, like a kid had rolled on the mattress, boom, and she got covered 1, 2, 3. And I wrote, oh, good God. Was this kind of a mess, or is it just me being picky?
I like that you turned into 1992 Dallas Page. Good God!
Oh, good God!
I mean, it's Nia Jax, and there was sloppiness all abound, and around and abound. And Liv won, and she was very happy to win. The other heels seemed very happy for her. And that was that.
Yeah.
And then Triple H came in.
Yes, and that's where he had to help her hold her hand up with the belt because it was so big she couldn't fucking get it up in the air by herself.
What do you think of Triple H having this role, the so public, I guess such a public role where not only is he the executive producer on the screen, but he now does like the Dana White thing where he's presenting people with belts. He's doing all the things. Not only did Vince never do that stuff, no WWE president ever did that stuff.
I like it. Because it's more real, it's more credible. It is a Dana White thing that the UFC has established, and it's combat sports oriented. And there's nothing the matter. In the old days, when nobody was supposed to know it was a work, then if the active wrestler or even retired wrestler who was kind of the booker in a territory coming out and doing that, especially if he'd been a heel or whatever, it may have given away too much. But since everybody knows now, Triple H has been retired for a while, he's the son-in-law, they know his public role, I think it kind of makes it more legitimate in that respect that it's more sports-like, and he's an ex-jock. He's moved into the commissionership or whatever the fuck. So I think this works, and everybody knows who he is. But that's just my opinion.
All right.
Would you like my opinion on the next match?
What was the next match?
Kevin Owens versus Randy Orton.
Oh, yeah, I'm really curious, actually, what you think, if this is indeed a match. What you think of this?
Well, if this was a traditional pay-per-view where people paid money and it was going to be the blow-off of something highly anticipated, I'd say, fuck, this was bullshit. But because did we mention they made $50 million and the people in the building were ecstatic at everything they saw, and even the people at home couldn't complain because there wasn't much difference in this and a match. It was just a fight, but most of the matches now are all fights anyway. So for the people who didn't see it, this is what they did. Orton comes out, and the fans again were singing his song big, and he milked every bit of it. I mean, I didn't put the clock on his entrance, but he took a while to get out there, because why not? They can't scream any louder. And Owens had come out in a Bob Orton Jr. shirt, and he did that the other night on SmackDown that we talked about earlier when he was wearing a Dusty Rhodes shirt. Now he's wearing a Bob Orton Jr. shirt, so he's wearing the shirts of the fathers of the people that have turned on him or whatever. But as Orton starts to, and by the way, for those of you who are keeping track, 5th match, 2 hours and 8 minutes into the show. But Orton gets up on the ropes to do his pose and his deal, and Owens gets him with a chair from behind and nails him a couple times. And they go to the floor, and Orton starts fighting back, and he drops Owens on the desk, and then Owens fights back, and Orton is selling his bad leg. And Owens is nailing him with chairs, and then the referee grabs the chair, so Owens stunners the referee. And then Orton gets the chair, and he wears Owens out with it. And the agents start running out, and the announcers say, well, they've waved the match off. And at least they didn't fight for 10 minutes and then get in the ring and ring the bell. But Orton dropped Owens on the desk again and threw Sean Daivari out and DDT'd Owens. But here came Pierce and Aldis in, and Orton gave Pierce the RKO. And then they fought over the rail into the arena, and there's Owens is beating the shit out of Orton with an equipment case. And then finally, to put a period or an exclamation point on it, Owens goes up into the crowd, the raised seating section, and comes off a platform, off of a railing onto Orton through a table. And then they both lay there and sell, and that's it. Which again, I know they love doing it. It's just so much fun to do that. But how does it get heat on you as a heel to lay the baby face out when you're laying there too? You fucked yourself up. Nobody has to get even with you. You got even with yourself. If Orton could give him the elbow drop or whatever through the table, and there's Orton in a quivering heap of jelly, and Owens is standing over him going, ha, 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 that's heat. But if they're both laying there fucking ready for the goddamn meat wagon to the hospital, is anybody mad at anybody at that point? Tell me your thoughts.
My thoughts are that this was a non-match to save the match for Royal Rumble or something.
I believe we mentioned at first it was awful quick to do this, didn't we?
Yeah. But it was
maybe they agreed with us.
But Rollins and Bronson Reed, they gave a finish to. Rollins won. Here, they didn't want anyone to lose yet. So they did this, and the way they just kind of fade out and go to a commercial.
Yeah.
On these pay-per-views now is crazy. I mean, you can kind of get away with any non-ending if that's what you're going to do.
Can you imagine if there was a a basketball game, and one guy was going for a dunk, and the other guy was going to try to reject that attempt. And they collided heads and fell on the ground, and their brains fucking splattered out, and their blood was trailing everywhere. And the announcers said, well, both men look like they may be dead. And they just faded to black. And when they came back, they were playing another game with other teams, and they never talked about it again.
They wouldn't do that, no.
I wonder why they wouldn't do that. It worked out well here. Anyway, we now have come, Brian, to the time where the United States Heavyweight Championship will be on the line with LA Knight defending against Andrade and Carmelo Hayes. It reminded me, Brian, of a song. Would you like to hear the song?
No. Oh, no. No.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to have ourselves a snack. They got ice cold drinks in the lobby. Ice cold drinks in the lobby.
I think I'm about to go to the lobby.
Well, they lobbied to put this on earlier, but they didn't win because this is the death spot, right? 2 hours and 25 minutes into the show, they start the next to last match, which is the most uninteresting angle featuring a top guy ever in the wrestling profession. And LA Knight even missed the leap up to the top rope and crotched himself. Did you see that?
I did. We've seen him do that every now and then. It happens.
No, he did, because there was two guys up on top this time. So instead of slipping off and just having to jump up and do it again, he actually did the crotch spot where the guy crotches himself on the top rope because he had less space for his feet to go. 8 minutes or so, LA Knight gave Hayes a nice BFT 1, 2, 3. Do, re, mi. That was, what, is this over? Is this thing over now? I don't mean over in a fan exciting money drawing way. I mean, is it finished, done with, kaput, vapor, in the archives, history? Please tell me it is.
I have no idea if it is or isn't.
Well, is you is or is you not, my baby? Skib-up, 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 skib-up. So we were time and ready for the main event. We were time and ready. It was time and we were ready. Oh, the words didn't come out. Gunther versus Cody for the gaudy, oversized Crown Jewel Championship that's approximately the same size as a small Volkswagen Beetle. And I was not really happy or wanting them to do the champion versus champion match because I thought it would hurt somebody, one of the participants, to have to lose. And I was thinking, well, should they even put Gunther over, because maybe that really wouldn't hurt Cody with some kind of, fuck screw job thing, whatever. But I think they had a good match here, and it didn't really hurt anybody. And apparently they're not going to refer to the Crown Jewel Championship again until next October when they start promoting next year's. So it was a good match, and they got away with a big match on a big show that they made money for and didn't really particularly hurt anybody's standing, I guess, overall. We can talk about the details in a minute, but they got out of it, I guess. Do you think they got out of it?
I mean, it was a good finish, considering it was a tough match to have a finish in, I think.
That's about all you can say.
What, did they get out of what? Did they get out of Gunther losing?
Did they get out of having this match without hurting either guy when it was over with? And I think the answer is yes.
Absolutely. And even the way it was handled after the pinfall, the way Gunther left, I thought was, he left strong.
But again, they sang Cody's song. I don't even know the goddamn words. And English is my first language. You might not be able to tell every once in a while, but it is. But again, the main event, but they were 2 hours and 45 minutes into the show for the start of the 7th match. It was a little slow, but this match, the crowd was already hot for it, and they knew this was the big one. So these guys could take their time. And of course, everybody else had taken their time, and also they took plenty of time in between every other match, but these guys deserved it, and it worked. And between the crowd just going batshit and singing ole, 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 ole all the time, to start this thing, all they had to do was wrestle. Again, it was back to kind of an old-fashioned spot show match where we can give them arm drags and arm bars, headlocks and takeovers, and the people are loving it. But then they picked it up, and when they started the heat, Gunther's an aggressive heel who lays his shit in, and Cody can sell and fight underneath or from underneath like a master. So again, these guys are professionals, and they take pride in what they do, and everything makes sense and looks good. There's no stupid, dangerous bumps. There's no sloppy work. There's no obvious alley-oop cooperation and, help me stand up here gingerly balancing on the top rope or doing this cheerleading move I learned at Mayberry Union High. And they had a good match, and they trade their big moves, but they put spots in where they can either explain having to sell and they can't capitalize immediately for a cover, and then they get a 2 count, or, whatever. It's not just an onslaught of boom, 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 huge bumps one after another like the kids do over on the other channel with no thought to the effects of same. And to be honest, they got the "This is awesome" chant after Gunther had caught a Boston Crab and then switched it to a sleeper and almost put Cody out with a sleeper. But Cody broke it with a chin buster and hit a crossroads but couldn't cover. And they were both selling, and that's where the crowd was going, "This is awesome." After like 3 holds in a row. And Gunther doesn't rush, and he doesn't do weak shit, and he gets the most out of everything. He's not going to stand there in the corner and copy his favorite indie outlaw Japanese wrestler by chopping you 17 times as quick as he can and it wouldn't break an egg. He's going to draw all the way back to the other ring post and throw something in with a follow-through and make it make noise. And that's what more is needed of in this business. He makes shit mean something, gets the most out of it, and instead of punching somebody 5 times, they all look like shit, he does it once and it looks great. And then anyway, they went back and forth, and they hit all their stuff, but there was a reason why it wouldn't work until finally Cody tried the super Cody cutter off the top rope. And boy, he's got balance for a guy that's running up the ropes and looking behind him. But Gunther caught him in a sleeper, and Cody rolled his weight and his momentum on over and stood on his head on Gunther's shoulders and got the 1, 2, 3. And it was a good finish because it was a fluke. It was, again, that's kind of like an old NWA World Title match finish where, you've got to, the champion has to retain against the top guy in the territory, and it doesn't want to just beat him. But it was a fluke. Shit, could have happened to anybody. And so they got by with having a good match. Nothing's really particularly settled. And you mentioned the aftermath when Gunther shook Cody's hand, but he also shook his finger at him. He's like, "All right, give me your hand." "Yeah, but next time, motherfucker, it's going to be different." And off he went. And 2 Arabian sheiks and 2 women in beekeepers' outfits, or there might have been hazmat suits, got in the ring and presented the belt that stays in Saudi Arabia. One of those women could have put it under her outfit and smuggled it out of there. They'd never know. You could probably get a couch from a furniture store underneath one of those fucking things.
I don't know, but again, it's kind of heavy, that belt, maybe heavier than the couch, but that was...
If she had some system of a truss under the outfit as well, because it's the size of a circus tent.
I mean, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, but did you see anything?
You could possibly even have a small bobcat underneath the women's outfits where they could just have it there, they could just run it and power it up the hill.
Yeah, Susanna actually saw some of the women's matches on the pay-per-view, and she said, you know, why are they wearing those outfits? I said, because they were in Saudi Arabia. She goes, oh, they look kind of cool. You know, she's a woman. She doesn't watch wrestling. I was like, yeah, they don't wear those here in the States. She goes, why? I said, well, you know, if they want to get over, they got to show some ass. I mean, they're not gonna get over in one of these fucking bodysuits. Are you kidding me?
Well, but at the same point, you could phrase it from the standpoint of the other gender. And even if the full body outfits look cool, and it's a sexist and misogynist thing to make the girls show their skin, is it worse that the girls have to show their skin by wearing the provocative outfits to get over before an American and or English speaking and or the rest of the goddamn world audience? But they have to do that, or is it worse that to appear in public in this other place, they have to wear stuff that they don't particularly want to make the choice to wear? Is that worse?
It's a question for the ages, if I say.
Well, how old do you got to be to answer it?
I'm not exactly sure. Did you see any of the post-match stuff where Liv and Cody rode on a golf cart over through the complex to the WWE experience so they could do a little bit of a press op with the Saudi Arabian chief of bringing American businesses desperate for money over, or whatever his job title was?
Is that the exact job title? The chief of Saudi Arabian companies bringing American businesses over to make them look better?
Maybe the unofficial title, but I believe that is his role, and they did that stuff. Did you get to see any of that?
I did not see any of that. What was that on?
That was on the Peacock.
Well, I was
the place everything else was on.
I was watching this on real television, the way that General David Sarnoff intended.
Wait, you bought the pay-per-view?
Yes.
No, you did not for this. No, you did not. No.
So that I could have the goddamn fast-forwarding capabilities that I'm used to in a modern civilized society.
If there was ever a Peacock event, it's this one. You got to be kidding me. You bought this on pay-per-view.
I'm on the couch in front of my 72-inch, or is it 82-inch television with full on-screen fast-forward capability instead of stuck here in front of my computer with these goddamn vice-like headphones on that you've got me wearing. My fucking ears are killing me now.
You can watch it on a TV.
Well, but it can't fast-forward the goddamn thing.
Not if it's live.
The fast-forward, no, even after the fact, the fast-forward on Peacock is terrible and iffy at best. And so I get real TV so that I can get through the 20 minutes in between matches without going out of my fucking mind.
Wow.
I'll have you know.
Well, you certainly haven't gone out of your mind. You sound perfectly sane.
Well, that's exactly correct, because I've always been the sane one. And it's just now that people are finding out that, Cornette's always been sane all along, and it was us that was all nuts.
All right, well, that was Crown Jewel from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And fingers crossed everyone gets home safe. In one piece. Allowed to leave the tarmac. Allowed to hit the air and get the hell out of there.
Hit the air? I don't know if Why did they... Here's another thing. I've told several pilots about this. Old Freddie Floyd, the pilot that Crockett had, and several people I've come in contact with. Why do they make the terminology so foreboding for people who don't like to fly? In a short time, we'll have you at your final destination. We'll be on the ground soon, heading for the terminal.
That's not that bad. What the hell's wrong with that one?
Terminal?
Well, the terminal, not heading towards terminal.
What about instead of saying we're going to take you to your final destination, how about we're going to drop you off where you want to go?
It doesn't sound too official.
Well, it sounds a little bit easier to take, though.
Thank you for flying. We're going to drop you off where you were ready to go in just a few minutes. Once we don't do any of the things we normally say here.
Yeah, well, you scare people that way. It's very nerve-wracking.